Okay, so we talked about last lecture the general features of mollusks. Make sure you guys are comfortable with those. What makes a mollusk a mollusk? Big picture ideas to put them into the phylum. And then I listed out the members of the four major classes of mollusks. So we have Polyplacophora, which are the chitons. We have Gastropoda, which are the snails and slugs. Bivalvia, clams, mussels, oysters. I forgot to mention scallops. Those guys go into bivalvia. And then the cephalopoda being our squids, octopuses, chambered nautiluses, and cuttlefish. All right, so now with part two, we're going to just start working through the classes and talk about key features and ecological roles and just some general information about these guys and what makes a member of the mollusks unique enough to go into the particular class. So this is a scientific level. So class, Polyplacophora. These guys are generically generally called the chitons. So let me make this a little smaller to fit the information in here. All right, so members of this class, the key defining feature is that these guys will have, oh, where's my little bullets? I want to do bullets. There we go. Oh, members of class Polyplacophora will have 8. Oh, I gotta spell it right. Sorry. 8 overlapping plates of calcium carbonate for their shells. All right, so they don't have one big shell. Instead, they have these 8 plates. So what this does, this allows these guys a little bit more flexibility, some mobility. So they're not just this single shell like a oyster. Each of these plates here can bend and kind of move across the plate next to it. The plate itself doesn't bend from side to side, but here's one plate, here's a second plate, third, so on. So these plates can kind of slide underneath each other just slightly, so it allows the animal to flex in this type of direction, kind of curl up. If you guys have seen a millipede, or we call them roly-polies, think about those guys. They have all those little plates, and that allows them to curl and flex. So it gives them mobility, flexibility with their body plan. So I'm going to actually make a small adjustment here. All right, so now what this does is this allows these guys to live, oh, I don't need that, sorry. Allows these guys to live in environments where you need to have some pretty good flexibility and mobility to survive. So chitons are primarily found in the intertidal zone within the ocean. This is where you have massive wave action, and you often have these rocky shores. So you'll find chitons attached to rocks, to substrate along the shore, scraping and scraping the algae. Now you got a big wave that comes slamming into the shore every so many seconds. You have to be able to attach yourself to the rock. So they fold themselves over the rock, and then the foot is modified into a suction cup that enables them to suction onto the actual substrate. The bet I always make for anybody interested who goes on the marine biology trip with me, if you can pop one of these things off with your fingers, I'll give you an A for that section of the course. Unbelievably difficult. They will attach on, lock on, scrape the algae, move 1/4 of an inch, lock themselves on, scrape some more algae, and just keep doing that. So a very, very unique and interesting adaptation to living in a very harsh marine environment where, again, there's a lot of wave action and stress on you in that environment. All right, so Polyplacophora, strictly marine. We don't see these in freshwater or terrestrial. All right, Gastropoda. These guys are the most group of mollusks. Oh, actually, let me put this up here. Class Gastropoda, because this is the scientific level. So all the gastropods go into this grouping or this class called Gastropoda. Now, what makes a gastropod different than Polyplacophora or the bivalvia? The key feature to be a gastropod is this thing called torsion. So during development, I'm just getting this typed out and I'll walk back through it. Okay. Oh, typo. So during embryological development, move you down. Oh. Oh no, I can't move down, sorry. I'll move another text box down there. I hate those images. All right, so during development, they go through torsion, which means their body twists as part of the development process. Doesn't hurt them, it's just normal development, and it positions the anus above the head, basically above the mouth there. So if you take a look at the picture here, here's the anus. There's a tag, the label for it right there. That's the anus, and then the head is right here. So that's kind of a unique feature among the mollusks. We don't see this in other classes of mollusks. This is unique to Gastropoda. This is their key feature. We will see these guys in freshwater, marine water, and terrestrial environments. By and large, they all have shells. There are some examples where we do not see shells. Things called sea hares, slugs. Those guys don't have shells, but in general, there are going to be shells across the majority of, let me back, sorry, spacing is off here. They're going to have shells, the majority of them. So like I said, there's always some exceptions, but torsion is a big, big key feature. Typical snail's got a shell. Typical marine snails, queen conchs, etc., all have shells. All right, now they do have radulas. Radula is going to be on the underneath side here. It's going to be used to scrape algae, to chew up debris, things like that. Unique story, kind of a scary story. Here's a little story about type of mollusk called the cone snail. Oh, actually, I'm going to back up. One of the other general features, like I said, this is general. Most mollusks, because they use the radula, most of them herbivores. They're eating algae, scraping up debris. So if you guys have a fish tank at home, a lot of times you put snails in it and they eat the algae up for you. Keeps the tanks clean. It's great. Other mollusks, though, like the cone snail, these are carnivores. These guys, the radula, is modified into a drill. So what's happened with these guys, the radula, instead of it being that chainsaw, think about it more like a drill bit, and it will actually drill down through the shell of other snails. So this is the irony. Members of class Gastropoda will actually eat other members of class Gastropoda. They will eat other bivalves or other mollusks. They will eat other gastropods. So, hey, if you're not moving too fast and I can crawl up on you and drill a hole into you, and then I can secrete digestive enzymes in there, awesome, I can kill you and eat you. Other cone snails have their radulas modified into harpoons, and that's the one we're looking at here. And this is a sad story. So here's a little harpoon that this particular type of cone snail has for the radula. Instead of this chainsaw, it's a harpoon. This is a magnified view of it. So notice that blade. I mean, that's pretty sharp, scary, angled, so when it penetrates into the flesh of an animal, you can't pull it out, so the animal can't get away. So World War II, Pacific Theater, U.S. and their allies are fighting the Japanese in the Pacific, and the Marines go in, one of the major battles in the World War II Pacific area. Marines take an island, and the battle's over, and this soldier goes to the beach to relax afterwards, picks up a cone snail, not realizing what he's, here's a snail, pretty shell, and the harpoon stabs him. And some of these mollusks, some of these gastropods have very powerful neurotoxins that they secrete. And when they stab you with their harpoon, the neurotoxin gets injected and it kills the prey. Well, this killed the soldier. So a man who survived the fighting, survived this horrible battle against the Japanese, gets killed by a cone snail. So, snails doing what snails do. It's not intentionally trying to kill them, but it's just an amazing thing to think about. Some of these animals have that lethal of a toxin. So what can we do with that toxin? Can we use that as a nerve numbing agent, as some kind of treatment for diseases? This is why these animals are so important, why understanding biology and species diversity is so important here. So, all right, so lots of the snails and the members of Gastropoda will reproduce sexually. They have eggs and they have sperm. A bunch of them, though, are hermaphrodites. Now, this is where you get into the weird story, so if you're sensitive, stop the video now. Yeah, you guys didn't stop it. I know you're staying with it because you want the weird stories. That's usually what biologists and bio majors are known for, is, ooh, tell me the weird story. So this was relayed to me by a marine biologist by the name of Eugene Kaplan. He's like the most famous marine biologist in the Caribbean. If you look up who helped name a lot of the species in the Caribbean, Eugene Kaplan. So I met the man years ago, highlight of my career, sitting and having lunch with him. So he was telling me sea hares, they're members of Gastropoda. They're equivalent to slugs we have in our gardens. And what sea hares do is, well, they crawl around, they eat algae, and they are members of the gastropods. Well, when it comes time for reproduction, all the sea hares get together in a group. And he said he watched us snorkeling along, and okay, here's a bunch of sea hares getting together to reproduce. So the challenge here is, if you're a hermaphrodite, making this your sea hare, you want to give sperm to another sea hare, fertilize their eggs, but you also want to receive sperm. So sea hare we'll call this number 2. Number 1, number 2. Number 2 is receiving sperm from the sea hare here, but then it's also donating sperm to the next sea hare, number 3. So here's number 3. So number 3 is receiving sperm, but donating sperm. Number 4. And you get this big line of sea hares all lining up to donate sperm, receive sperm, donate sperm, and so on and so on. So the problem is, if you are at the beginning of the line, let's make your frowny face there, or at the end of the line, this one's only donating, this one's only receiving. So to solve the problem, some of you have already figured this out, you have to make a circle the sea hairs.